I have tubes.
You have to.
Quite
Okay.
good.
When Israel and the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, in 1993 initiated the process 25 years ago, the first thing that the Israeli and Palestinian side did is we looked each other in the eyes and we did something that had not been done until then. We recognized each other. Ladies and gentlemen, huge thing, okay? Israel said, you Palestinians exist. We didn't say it until then. The Palestinians said, you Israel exist. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody asked them in 1993. This isn't just about asking. Nobody said to them, and you have to recognize that we are a Jewish nation state and that we have a right here. They recognized our existence. We recognized them. We didn't say, and you have a right to be a sovereign, independent state in the 67 borders. We recognized their existence. And I give that in the background because in 1994, 5, 6, 7, in the years where there were direct negotiations both before Rabin was assassinated and after he was assassinated in Netanyahu's first term as a prime minister in the 1990s and then later on in the late 90s, what eventually ended up is that Israel and the PLO said, let's do two things. First, let's get all of the Palestinians, or as many as possible, who are now under direct Israeli military occupation to be under self-Palestinian rule. Listen, I'm in 2018, 98% of the Palestinians of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip are under self-Palestinian rule. That's not independence, but it means that they decide on what they do, both with their income and where that output goes, and we could talk extensively about where Hamas takes that output, okay? That's in the Gaza Strip. But if I look at the Palestinian Authority that was built in stages in the West Bank, they have had from 1995 and onward, Jericho was already in 1994, and then the rest of the West Bank in 1995 and the city of Hebron in 1997, okay, because it took time as it went along. And in the West Bank, the bulk of Palestinians are under their self-rule. What the Israelis and Palestinians said is once the Palestinians are mainly under self-rule, gives them a little bit more, it's not that they're going to be negotiating when most of them are under direct Israeli military occupation. We'll sit down and we need to resolve 6 issues. I'm going to give you the list of 6 and then I'm going to open it up for questions, okay? It's called the list, right? It's written, by the way, into the Declaration of Principles that was signed on the White House lawn on September 13th, 1993. The sentence that I'm going to say right now. We need to resolve. I've turned you into my counterpart, right? Borders, we need to resolve security, we need to resolve sovereignty, we need to resolve settlements. I'll do those first 4. Borders, security, sovereignty, settlements. Those are the first 4. What are the last 2, ladies and gentlemen?
Status of Jerusalem.
Jerusalem is number 5, and what's the 6th one?
Right of return.
Refugees, or the right of returns, and thank you, Hugh, because he said the right of return, and thank you on the right side who said refugees, because just think of the gap between the two sides if I call it refugees or if I call it the right of return. So the fact that I can give you this clear list of the 6 issues make it clear, it doesn't make it simple. I'm going to give the following examples. Borders. Did I talk about it enough until now? 1947 or 1948? 1948 or 1949? I have 138 countries who recognize Palestine. The less secure Israel is. I'm going to give you the easy example. I can see standing up Bethlehem directly behind us. Let's say that we arrive at a resolution which enables an Etzion block, which for me is pre-67, pre-48. It's in Israel, Beitar Elite that we looked at. Is in Israel, we've agreed on the lines, okay? Does Palestine have a standing military?
No.
If they don't have a military, and I'm talking right now to Norway, I'm talking right now to Europe in general, if they don't have a military, are they sovereign? If they're not sovereign, have we resolved anything? Are there any sovereign countries, full sovereign countries, who don't have a military?
No.
Absolutely, at least 3. Start with 1.
Iceland.
You're right, by the way, and that's a side note. But the most familiar one to most North Americans is Costa Rica. Why doesn't Costa Rica have a military? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they choose not to have a military. Having a military is not written as And I say that in that negotiation, you say military, you just heard the Israeli Air Force. So does Palestine have an Air Force? If it doesn't have an Air Force, is it still sovereign? And it can be sovereign and choose to have limitations, just like not Costa Rica, not Iceland, but the Republic of Egypt in the peace treaty with Israel agreed and accepted limitations on its military capabilities in Sinai. Okay? They agreed to that. It's fully sovereign Egyptian territory. And they don't allow in Air Force, they don't allow in, okay? And I say that because the examples are around us. But ladies and gentlemen, those are the easy ones of security and sovereignty. Look at this tower right here. That's the idea. That's, by the way, the Air Force, the noise in the background. And it may or may not be connected right now to the Gaza Strip. But what's on the tower next to us? I want to commend the group of media. Not a single cell phone rung the entire time that I was talking. Wow, okay? Who owns the cell phone? Who owns the frequencies?
State.
Okay? So how do you divide it? Okay?
It's not possible. I mean,
So how do, okay, and I give that both within the security, who owns it? Who defines? How do you do that? Who gets the 3G, the 4G, okay? And I give you that as challenges, but ladies and gentlemen, even that one I can say, so you negotiate. So, Riley, Mr. Riley from the United States, you're from Norway? I'm gonna use Norway, okay? Thank you, Norway. So there's peace. Because that's what we want, right? That's the term that we're talking about. I call it resolution. Peace to me, I aspire to, but it means something else. And my lovely gentleman from Norway wants to fly to Palestine. And SAS is the first international airline that says, I will have direct flights from Norway to Palestine.
they would like to do that, I think.
They absolutely would. And they open up what? Ramallah International, Gaza International. Ladies and gentlemen, when they open up Ramallah International, and there was an international airport in the Gaza Strip, I'll remind you, we bombed it out of existence when they initiated the Second Intifada against Israel. Why am I saying that? So Norway has flights. Do they get to define that they have flights also from Tehran? Do I have a say in that? Can you have an airplane that's coming from Tehran, not from Norway, from Tehran, that doesn't go through any kind, it's like, and it lands north of Jerusalem or it lands in the Gaza Strip? Ladies and gentlemen, when you talk about security and sovereignty, these are challenges. And I gave you the list of the 6 because I want to be clear. It is hard, it is doable, but doable is between leaders. Because at the end, both sides have to compromise. On borders, okay, borders, security, sovereignty, settlements, Jerusalem and refugees, which are the 2 hardest issues. Jerusalem is an ethos for us. Refugees, or the right of return, is an ethos for the Palestinians. Very challenging. I will allow Hugh, because he's British. Okay, sorry. Okay, it's the British accent.
We're actually making a documentary
Okay.
on everything you've been talking about.
Okay,
And it's looking at the legitimacy of Israel in international law.
okay,
And for the benefit of people here, we were talking about the partition plan of 1947. Well, the UN General Assembly cannot make decisions or pass resolutions that are binding in international law.
that's right.
So the whole idea of Jerusalem being a corpus separatum is a recommendation.
I'm agreeing.
And if the Arabs then and the Jewish people then had signed a treaty based on that partition plan, then it would have binding, it would be binding in international law.
So I'll be very clear, Hugh. I wasn't talking
Yeah.
here the negotiations, the resolution, the conflict, and the violence
Yeah.
between the Israelis and Palestinians. I'm going to be rude for a moment and say is not about the law,
Yeah.
okay? And this issue of international law is always an interesting one. It's an additional one. I, as an Israeli, and I would say also the Palestinians over the last few years, more and more are trying to turn it into lawfare, something that needs to be resolved that way. At the end, it doesn't work that way. You just saw looking around,
That's
okay?
why we're making the film.
Here we are. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Please.
Why do you call it occupation? If
Okay.
Israelis call it occupation, which to my understanding at
worst, it's a
Right.
disputed
I want you to turn around so I can see your name.